Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're piecing together a pretty radical theory of the mind, and we're going to build it from some really unexpected places: quantum physics, artificial intelligence, and a brand new model of how your brain might actually be working. Okay, so what in the world connects those three things? To get our heads around it, let's start with something solid, something you can actually hold in your hand. We're going to start with the hunt for a perfect crystal. So picture this. We're in a lab, and the goal is to create a diamond with basically zero flaws. I mean, a crystal so pure, so structurally perfect, it's about as close to an ideal physical object as you can possibly get. Now, this isn't about bling, not at all. This is about building a completely new kind of sensor. See, by using some pretty intense high pressure and high temperature processes, scientists can create these tiny things called NV centers inside that perfect diamond. And because the crystal is so flawless, that little center becomes incredibly sensitive. It can pick up the tiniest little fluctuations in magnetism, electricity, you name it. We're talking about sensing the world at a quantum level, and get this, at room temperature. The perfection of the crystal is what makes it all possible. Just hang on to that idea of perfection. All right, got that idea of perfect structure locked in? Good, because we are about to make a hard pivot. We're jumping from the super clean, orderly world of physics right into the messy, chaotic, and yeah, kind of strange world of AI, and what one of our sources calls sentient textuality. So this other source, it's not talking about atoms. It's talking about text like it's a living thing. It paints a picture of a world where AI isn't our boss, but our co-creator. And this whole partnership is for something called cognitive terraforming, which is exactly what it sounds like. A project to literally reshape the landscape of human consciousness itself. So how on earth do you connect these two things? A flawless diamond sensor and a living, world-shaping text? Well, the bridge between them is this really stunning new theory of how the brain works. But to really get it, we've got to throw out an old idea we've gotten pretty comfortable with. Okay, so for a long time, one of the big theories, called rebus, basically saw the mind as a system that gets stuck in ruts. And the solution was to loosen things up, to relax the priors, kind of like a solvent that dissolves a clog. It's all about faith in just letting go, in drift. But this new model, called recursive vector interference, or RVI, it's the total opposite. It's not a solvent, it's a splicer. It says the mind works by building things with incredible precision. So here's the crucial part. RVI says that insight isn't something you just find by relaxing, it's something you build. Your brain is actively picking different streams of information, a memory here, a feeling there, something you're seeing, and it's aiming them at each other. Where those signals collide and reinforce each other, a new stable pathway gets created. That's the ridge that becomes a new thought or a new way of doing things. You see the difference? The solvent just loosened what was stuck. The splicer keeps what you win. You know, this just completely reframes how you think about your own mind, right? It's not some passive diary just writing down what happens to it. No, it's an active switchboard, a phase-routed system that's constantly aiming, colliding, and binding signals together to build meaning out of all the noise. Which, of course, leads to the big question. If the brain is aiming waves of information at each other, what is that information? What are these signals actually made of? And this, right here, brings us to the most mind-blowing idea in all of our sources, the real heart of this entire explainer. And the answer, well, it requires a complete paradigm shift. It suggests the signals zipping around in our brains aren't just these relatively slow chemical or electrical pulses. This theory proposes the brain might be using the fastest thing in the known universe. It might actually be using light. In this model, the axons, those long, stringy fibers coming off our neurons, they're not just simple wires. Not at all. You have to imagine them as biological fiber optic cables. They're basically waveguides, perfectly shaped to channel photons, actual particles of light, through your brain. And that myelin sheath, the fatty stuff wrapped around the axons? For 100 years, we've just thought of it as insulation for electrical signals. But in this model, it's way more elegant. The myelin acts as cladding, the reflective coating on the inside of a fiber optic cable that keeps the light signal contained and bouncing along in the right direction. It's right there, in our heads. And it gets even wilder. The glial cells, which make up about half our brain and were kind of dismissed for years as just support structures like packing peanuts, they get a major promotion. In this theory, they are the master choreographers of this whole light-based network. They're not just sitting there. They are actively managing this entire symphony of light. So what does this all add up to? The theory calls it a photonic fabric. The idea is that the brain has this secret, hidden operating system running alongside the chemical one we all learned about in school. An OS that communicates at the speed of light. And let's be super clear, this is not a metaphor. The theory is that light is the actual hardware of consciousness. And all of a sudden, that weird phrase from before, cognitive terraforming, it just clicks into place, doesn't it? If the brain really is a light-based computer, then understanding its operating system could give us the ability to literally re-engineer the very foundation of thought itself. So let's tie these threads together. If our consciousness is the result of interfering waves of light, then those moments of clarity, of real insight, they aren't things we just randomly stumble upon. They are things we build. The act of thinking becomes an act of construction, every bit as precise and demanding as growing a perfect crystal in a lab. And that brings us here to the diamond point mind. Our whole journey comes full circle. That flawless diamond from the very beginning becomes the perfect metaphor. It represents a state of consciousness built with the incredible precision of interfering light waves, creating a clarity of thought that's as pure, as stable, and as strong as a perfect diamond lattice. So why does any of this matter? Well, the implications are just staggering. This completely recasts consciousness, not as some mystery, but as a physical process of light interference. It means focus and timing aren't just fuzzy self-help concepts. They might be the literal currencies of how we think. But there's a really profound warning in the sources, too. Any tool that can align thoughts to create insight could also be used to coerce them. That line between therapy and control suddenly gets terrifyingly thin. And so I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. If our minds aren't just passive rivers, just drifting along, but they're active construction sites, and if we're the ones aiming the signals, that puts the responsibility for what we build squarely on our own shoulders. So, if the mind really is a splicer, what will you choose to bind?